Greetings from the driver's seat of a Mercedes-Benz GLC Coupe, a car that aims to blend all the stylish sportiness of a coupe with all the rugged practicality of an SUV. This is the facelifted version, and while before it was only available as a fully imported high-performance AMG 43, it's now available with more practical 4-cylinder petrol and diesel engines and is locally assembled. This makes it far more affordable, and though you lose the performance of the AMG, which is also coming back soon by the way, there's a huge chunk of people who want this sort of car just for the style. So yes, while local assembly and these 4-cylinder engines make the GLC Coupe accessible to a lot more people, you have to remember that this is not the first car in the segment to do that. Oh no, that would be the BMW X4. That's right, while Mercedes may have introduced this segment to the Indian market with the GLC 43 in 2017, it was BMW in 2019 that made it more affordable with local assembly of the X4. And which of these two coupe SUVs would you pick? Let us know down in the comments, and of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like and subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified every time we make a new upload. Now, before we go any further, there's a caveat we need to get cleared up. Both cars can be bought with 4-cylinder petrol engines, but the X4 you see here is the 6-cylinder diesel, the 30D, while the GLC is the 300D, which is actually a 4-cylinder diesel. BMW also offers a 4-cylinder diesel, the 20D, and it costs about 1.3 lakh rupees less than the Merc. But this 6-cylinder diesel costs 4.2 lakh rupees more than the Merc, which really doesn't seem like a lot when you're paying upwards of 60 lakh rupees. Or is it? Well, let's start by seeing what they're like to drive, starting with the GLC. Now, this may just be a 4-cylinder diesel engine, but it's not your run-of-the-mill 4-cylinder diesel engine. You see, Mercedes has a 220D, which is the standard one, but this is the 300D. And what that means is that it has 245 horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque. And that really is quite a lot. The good news starts early. When you set off, it's very refined and it's very smooth. And the 9-speed automatic does a great job of working in the background. Now, in an ordinary sedan or SUV, you'd be quite comfortable to drive in the lower part of the engine's power band, where it's smooth and comfortable and refined. But this is a sporty coupe, and it lends itself to a little bit more excited driving, you know. So what I'm going to do is put it up into Sport Plus mode, put my foot down, and well, yep, it picks up and gets going quite briskly. It's got enough pace, but to access that pace, you really have to wring it out. And that's when it starts to unravel a bit. Closer to its limits, it sounds and feels strained, and the gearbox starts to fumble and feel jerky with its shifts. So yeah, while the performance is there, you get the feeling that the engine is working really hard to give you that performance. What also takes away from the driving experience is that despite this car having a Sport Plus mode, that in no way affects the suspension. That's right, there's no air suspension or adaptive dampers here, and what you get is a suspension setup that is tuned primarily for comfort. And while it is exceptionally comfortable, it just doesn't work so well in the corners. You get a lot of body roll, and the steering doesn't offer too much in the way of weight or feedback. It is certainly very quick and very sharp, so changing direction is very easy, but I'd have liked a little bit more feedback from my sporty coupe SUV. So, the GLC Coupe is very comfortable and easy to drive like its more conventional counterpart, with pretty good performance but perhaps could have been a little bit sharper. But how does the BMW X4 compare? Well, so the BMW X4 xDrive 30D, well, it's a 6-cylinder engine, but it only has 20 horsepower more than the 4-cylinder engine in the Mercedes. So honestly, the performance should not be too different. Whoa! Well, it may only have 20 horsepower more than that 4-cylinder engine in the Mercedes, but it has 120 Newton meters more torque. And boy, does that make a difference. Sure, you can wring a lot of horsepower out of a smaller engine these days, but when it comes to that initial thrust, especially in heavy SUVs like this, a 4-cylinder just can't beat a 6. And let me remind you, all this while I've had it in comfort mode. Press down on the sport button, tap the gear lever to the left, and in our performance test, the X4 did 0 to 100 kph in an almost sports car-like 5.64 seconds, which is almost 2 seconds quicker than the Merc, and the differences were similar in kickdown or overtaking acceleration. BMW's 3-litre straight-six turbo diesel whacks out 265 horsepower and 620 Newton meters, but the driving experience goes beyond the numbers. Even in a car this big and heavy, it doesn't feel strained when it's accelerating. It pulls in a nice, smooth, clean manner with a constant thrust, and it's quite refined for the most part, but when you extend it, it actually sounds quite good. And yes, unlike the Mercedes, this one has adaptive dampers. So while the ride is perhaps a little bit fidgetier than what you get in the Mercedes, it's still very good overall in comfort mode. And then it doesn't get too bad when you put it in sport either. But when you do put it in sport, you get incredible body control. While the softly sprung Merc doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in corners at speed, the Beamer is a lot more composed. The gearbox behaves more consistently too. It shifts smoothly when you're driving slowly, and even when you're going hell for leather, it doesn't get caught out. It shifts away really quickly and really smoothly in the background. So on the driving front, the BMW has a clear edge, but these are still SUVs, so practicality does play a role. They both have all-wheel drive and more than enough ground clearance to handle a rough trail. Both have boots that aren't quite as big as their regular SUV counterparts, but that can still take at least one big suitcase and maybe a few smaller ones too. And when it comes to the back seats, now the back seat is not a reason you'd buy either of these cars, to be perfectly frank, but in case you wanted to take your friends along for the ride, it's worth checking out what they're like. And well, the news isn't amazing. Bear in mind that I'm just under 5 foot 8 inches tall and I've got the driver's seat set to my position, and well, headroom, it's okay for me, but anyone taller would have a bit of a hard time. Knee room is okay, and what's also nice is that you can tuck your feet well under the seats in front because they're very high set. And the seat itself is very well cushioned. It's nice and soft, but it's a bit upright, and I wish it had more under thigh support. And of course, this being a coupe SUV with a sloping roof, the windows are rather small. Still, if you do want to charge your devices back here, what you do get is a set of USB-C ports and a 12-volt socket. Things in the BMW's backseat aren't too much better. Here too you get a very upright bench, very small windows, and not a lot in the way of headroom. Again, knee room is pretty good, and there's lots of place to tuck your feet under the front seat. A downside here is that the seat cushioning is a bit firm, and that doesn't help matters for passengers sat in the back. But on the upside, you do get a slightly bigger sunroof. It opens a little further back, not all the way, but it lets in enough light to make things feel just a little bit airier. And moreover, there's just a little bit more bright work and a few more design elements to keep things interesting back here. And though it doesn't get USB ports, it just gets a 12-volt socket for your charging needs back here. You do get your own dedicated climate zone for the rear seat. It's clear then that things are better in the front seats of both these cars, and the X4, in true BMW fashion, has a driver-focused layout. BMW has done well to set the X4's cabin apart from the regular X3s by using different textures and materials all over the place, like this sort of honeycomb futuristic, I don't know what to call it, pattern over here on the dashboard, as well as more brushed aluminium switchgear all over the place. Aside from that, it retains its very sporty bend with a slightly angle towards the driver dashboard, this beautiful M Sport steering wheel, and of course there are digital dials here too. It gets BMW's iDrive, which is widely regarded to be one of the best in the business, although the Mercedes system is really good this time around, but it's not the latest version of BMW's iDrive. Still, you do get a large touchscreen, a click wheel with a lot of shortcut buttons, and even gesture control for a few functions. The seats are very comfortable, but they clearly have a more sporty intent to them, in that they're a little bit firmer than the ones in the Mercedes, but on the other hand, you can adjust the bolsters quite well to hold you in place and to suit your frame. In line with the updates given to the regular GLC, this GLC Coupe also gets a revised interior. It gets unvarnished wood on the dashboard, which is good because it's less prone to scratching, and it gets the new MBUX infotainment system, which responds to voice commands and has an AI guided assistant built into it. It's very cool, it gets a widescreen touch screen, and the click wheel has made way for a touchpad down here. In addition to that, you also get the new steering wheel with the touchpads on either side, but unique to the Coupe is a set of digital dials as well as memory function for the driver and passenger powered seats. The seats themselves are really comfortable. They're really nicely cushioned, and I feel like they'll hold you in place nicely when you're cornering. It's just that on the whole, I wish the cabin ambience was a little bit more exciting. Sure, the quality is very hard to fault. It's really good, but for a sporty coupe like this, I wanted a little bit more excitement in terms of cabin design. So yes, the GLC's interior design could have been spiced up a bit, but as I mentioned, they have been sure to throw in a bit more equipment compared to the regular GLC. But then that's true of the X4 compared to the X3 as well. Both cars are really generously equipped. But what's just as, if not more important with coupe SUVs like this, is making a statement. Now, style is a very important part of these cars' appeal. But the thing is, style tends to be kind of subjective, isn't it? For instance, I personally prefer the BMW. I think maybe it's because it's offered in this M Sport X, guys, the really sporty looking one with the aggressive bumpers, aggressive wheels, and that little spoiler over the tailgate. It all comes together really nicely to accentuate its coupe SUV lines. The GLC, on the other hand, it does have a very elegant profile, but apart from that, I wish they'd done more to separate it from the regular GLC, something to signify that you bought the sportier coupe variant. But that brings us to the bigger question. What do you think about this sort of car, a coupe SUV? Well, to me, it's kind of like wearing a tight-fitting, sharp-cut blazer up top and a pair of muddy, grubby farm boots down below. And now that I've made that one point, I'm going to get rid of this jacket because it is very hot today. Shall we go take a drive? We've really come a long way as a car market, haven't we? Here we are comparing two diesel-powered mid-size luxury coupe SUVs, and it's a far more nuanced battle than you'd think. The GLC 300D Coupe delivers what it set out to, a more affordable alternative to the AMG GLC 43 Coupe, which sacrifices some performance while retaining the stylish coupe body style. It's very comfortable, and with the new MBUX infotainment, it's got a lot of tech on the inside too. And all this comes together to make it a stylish and desirable vehicle. It's just that the BMW X4 does almost everything just as well, and in some crucial cases, better. Both on the outside and in, BMW has made a concerted effort to make sure the X4 feels a step above the X3. And then there's the fact that it's more enjoyable to drive than the Mercedes, and with adaptive dampers, you can stiffen things up for more confidence in the corners. Now you could save some money and get the 4-cylinder 20D, which is also a strong engine, but we'd urge you to stretch for this 30D, because for a small price increase, you're getting a huge performance gain. So yes, both these cars will give you a more stylish alternative to a regular mid-size luxury SUV, but it's the BMW that goes the extra mile.